Now, for many years, the job of maintaining Israel's connection with the diaspora was filled by various officials, including the head of the Jewish Agency, the Minister of Immigration, the Prime Minister's advisor on diaspora affairs, and for U.S. Jewry, the Israeli ambassador in Washington. But in 1999, the Ministry of Diaspora Affairs was created and has since been headed by such figures as Rabbi Michael Melchior, Natan Sharansky, Isaac Herzog, Naftali Bennett, and Nachman Shai. The current Diaspora Affairs Minister, Amichai Shikli, has attracted controversy during his short tenure, criticizing liberal American Jewish organizations and the reform movement, appearing to flash an obscene gesture at protesters during New York's Celebrate Israel parade, and recently being accused by a Biden administration official as not even understanding U.S. Jews. Now, views on Shikli's performance may differ, but the bigger question we ask today on the Jewish Forum is, does Israel even need a diaspora affairs minister? And joining us today on the Jewish Forum in Tel Aviv, Danny Ayalon, former Israeli Deputy Foreign Minister and the former Israeli Ambassador to the U.S. We have Kelly Oates, former advisor on international affairs at the Ministry of Diaspora Affairs, and Talia Gorodis. She is a former fellow at the Jewish People Policy Institute, a PhD candidate at Ben-Gurion University at the Negev. She's written and researched the issue of Israel diaspora affairs. And Talia, I'll ask you, and I'll rephrase the question slightly. Are there good reasons for Israel to have a diaspora affairs minister?
Well, the short answer is it depends. It depends on the mindset, the values, and the beliefs that the Ministry of Diaspora Affairs brings with it to the job. It can do a wonderful job if it sees its role as bringing Israel and Jewish diaspora communities closer together and developing a long-term relationship with Jewish communities. And it can also create a lot of damage, as we've seen in recent years, not just by the current coalition. So it depends. In principle, I would say yes.
In principle, yes. Well, let me ask Danny Ayalon, Ambassador Ayalon, because there are some ambassadors, and I count you, that do in a way serve as a spokesman for Israel, for example, to the U.S. Jewish community. But there are others, I'd even maybe say the current Ambassador Michael Herzog, who sees his job differently. Do you think there is a need for Israel to have a diaspora affairs minister?
Not really. And actually, if you look back, actually, at the formative years when the state was formed or reestablished, there was no diaspora minister. It was only a matter, as you mentioned, only from 99. And by 99, actually, Israel has been, I would say, strong enough in so many fields that today, I believe, Israel should give to the diaspora and not the other way around. Now, there is no doubt that the connection between Israel and diaspora is very, very important and should be seamless. Why? Because the Jewish state belongs to every Jew. And not just for refugee issues, it's also a matter of identity, it's also a matter of security of Jewish communities worldwide. But all these issues can be arranged and handled from the Prime Minister's office with an advisor. And I can tell you, from my experience, as I was a chairman of Nefesh B'Nefesh, a Jewish immigration from, or a Jewish Aliyah organization, NGO from the United States and North America, and we always worked with the Prime Minister's office and not with anyone else. And I think that should be the way for the future as well.
All right. Well, Kelly, you worked in the Ministry of Diaspora Affairs for Minister Nachman Shai, who was very connected to the diaspora. I mean, what is your view based on what, for example, what you've seen and experienced?
Yes. Well, I definitely believe that there should be a diaspora minister, because I'm under the impression that someone in this country needs to wake up every day and think about the future of the Jewish people. And, I think even more than that, it's not only about a minister. The conversation about whether a minister can be controversial or not controversial, that's one conversation. But behind a minister is his entire ministry and the projects that he gets that are done on an ongoing basis. So the minister comes and goes, but the projects of the ministry as a whole really are are making a difference on the ground, from my experience, in terms of humanitarian aid when there are crises like in Ukraine and a few years ago, the Miami condo collapse, projects like combating anti-Semitism. There is a dedicated ministry that has access to representation in the Knesset that can really move things. So in my opinion, there's a strong case for continuing to keep a diaspora affairs minister.
Natalia, I know you've done research on how certain Israeli leaders related to diaspora, such as David Ben-Gurion, for example. In your view, what are the qualifications or characteristics that whoever fills that job as Minister of Diaspora Affairs should bring to it?
Well, for starters, I would say modesty and openness for dialogue. In the summer of 1950, David Ben-Gurion actually convened some of the most senior members of his government in order to address the question, what should be done with our approach to American Jewry? And in the very first paragraph of the protocol, he said, it's clear that the conventional Zionist attitudes and approaches do not fit the unique case of American Jewry. They do not suffer from anti-Semitism, and they know very well the address to get a visa to make aliyah. And however, for the most part, they don't. So we need to formulate new approaches, a new understanding that would allow us to be in a good dialogue with this influential and very important diaspora. And so his intention was to form some sort of a sub-ministry. The mechanics, I don't think matters that much, but the intention back in the summer of 1950 for sure was to give some sort of a formal capacity to an advisor or a minister whose responsibility would be to deal specifically with American Jewry, not even world Jewish communities.
Right. Danny, clearly, I would say Talia and Kelly do differ from you somewhat. They're a little more, feel a little more that there should be a diaspora affairs minister. There is an argument to be made that someone in the cabinet at the ministerial level will have more of an influence within the government on issues, for example, on diaspora affairs than just an advisor to the prime minister, or even the head of the Jewish agency. The current head, Doron Almog, barely speaks out, for example, on these issues.
Yes, Caleb, I beg to differ with my distinguished colleagues here, maybe because of my experience. I worked in the Prime Minister's office for 5 years, and I was ambassador in Washington for almost 5 years. So I've seen it from all sides. We don't need red tape and another bureaucratic ministry. And the power really is at the Prime Minister's office, and all projects and everything can be run from the Prime Minister. He's the one who decides on the budgets, and another ministry is just redundancy. And also we have a large enough government with so much bureaucracy that actually they get into the into the matters of each other in an adverse, I would say, manner. So, yes, we do need a function to do that, but a minister is not something that can help. Another small ministry is something which is just an added drain on the budget, which can, and all the functions can be done much more effectively and from the Prime Minister's office.
Well, Kelly, I ask you maybe to respond to Danny, because and maybe some examples from your own experience as for a specific issue or situation where you felt the ministry or the minister that you served under was able to address issues concerning the diaspora more effectively than some of the other bodies that or individuals Danny's talking about.
Yes. Well, one thing that I did notice from my time in the ministry was that, there is almost no conversation about diaspora affairs within Israel. Amongst the Israeli media and, the voters of Israel, this topic is hardly spoken about, and it's almost pulling teeth to try and get this topic on the media in Israel. They do not really mention diaspora affairs, neither do they really mention a diaspora minister unless he does something controversial. And so I specifically think that if we leave a certain branch of a certain ministry to deal with the entire diaspora relations, I just worry that it would get even less attention and even less spoken about in the media and in the news. So having an official ministry for it certainly helps the country realize a little bit more the importance of what it is to be in touch with the global Jewish population. With regards to some certain experiences, we certainly dealt hands-on in the Ukrainian crisis. I worked for Minister Nachman Shai, and we went to Germany to meet the refugees. We contributed monetarily. We could really act fast because we were part of the Knesset. We were part of a quick authority. We could issue resources quickly, and we had that access, and it was on the front of our minds. I believe that if we are part of another ministry or part of a certain organization, a smaller part, we won't have the high level seniority of a minister that can quickly make decisions.
All right, well, there's an argument to be made for that in the right circumstances. But let me ask you, Talia, again, you looked at the structure of the Israel-diaspora relationship. If you were creating a position, would it be a minister? Is there something that should be, or a body, even a ministry? Would it be a ministry in order just to deal with the Israel-diaspora relationship?
Again, I'm not qualified to talk about the ideal structure. It's not really my specialty or interest, but I would say that if Israel's premise is to be the nation state of the entire Jewish people and not some sort of a Jewish Sparta that only looks at its own citizens, then for sure we need some sort of a formal function that has a formal budget and staff to deal with these issues. And like has been just said now, they're quite varied, right? Ranging from anti-Semitism and various other threats, and also positive opportunities that arise. So, for example, or threats that we sometimes even create or may create with our own actions. So, for example, if Israel goes to some sort of a military campaign in Gaza, does it affect American Jewish communities? What happens? What is our responsibility, if any, towards American Jews who may get attacked on the Fifth Avenue in New York or in Argentina as a result of our own actions over here? Do we even think about these potential outcomes?
Let me ask Ambassador Ayalon. Did you have those discussions in any of the functions or any of the in your capacity, or is that something that would need a minister to take that up?
I had very meaningful, I would say, discussions and also projects managed both from the Embassy of Israel in Washington and the Prime Minister's office. And actually, the Ukraine is a very good case in point. I don't remember anything, and not in the Israeli, let's say, public life, a visit of a diaspora minister in the Ukraine. However, it is very well remembered that the foreign ministry was there, that the defense ministry was there with real help on the ground, whether it was field hospital or visas giving. It's the foreign ministry, and it wasn't any other ministry. So redundancy is not helpful here.
All right. Well, we're going to have to leave it at that. But I would like to thank Ambassador Danny Ayalon, Kelly Odes, and Talia Goradis for joining us on this discussion in the Jewish Forum on Jewish World Weekly. Thank you.